Hello, good evening, welcome to our front. My guest tonight is the Commissioner of the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, Joseph Whittal. We'll be interrogating his recent uncompromised stand on issues of corruption, police brutality, and the need to hold public institutions accountable. You're welcome, sir. I hope you are doing well. It's been a long time since we had the in-studio session like this.
Right.
You have been running away from the ordinary people of this state.
Are you
the
sure?
people you should be serving anyway.
You have been refusing to call me.
Oh, really?
At your call.
I hope you are doing great. I mean,
I'm doing very well.
Let me zoom in straight because there's a recent comment that I'm interested in you making. You said at an anti-corruption conversation that you would like to strongly urge the executive, in particular the Attorney General and Cabinet, to master the political will to put before Parliament for passage into law two very important innovations in the anti-corruption legal framework in Ghana, which will serve as the domestication of the AUCPCC and the UNCAC. These laws are the Conduct of Public Officers Bill and the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill 2021. The Conduct of Public Officers Bill is better known in the public domain, all right? Yeah. Of course, in your view, the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill, which is with the Attorney General and has consulted stakeholders on its inputs, is lesser known, but equally very important. From where I sit, how relevant are these two bills to the quest to make sure that corruption is high risk?
Thank you, Raymond. But let me indicate that it is strongly urged.
Okay.
I'm still urging, but making it strong. And my good friend, Godfrey Yebo Adame, should ensure that if we're going to make the fight against corruption a meaningful exercise, the Attorney General and the Cabinet should make sure that we bring these two bills. The Conduct of Public Officers Bill has been in the public domain to and fro from the executive to Parliament and back to the executive through Cabinet again for about 10 years now. Meanwhile, we're engulfed in corruption. The Criminal Offences Amendment Bill is expanding the area of corruption in terms of the scope of corruption. That is even not known by most people. So these are two bills that will take forward the UN Convention Against Corruption, which Ghana has ratified, and Ghana has been peer-reviewed. And these, in fact, the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill is actually a product of Ghana's peer review.
Oh, I see.
And why we are not ensuring that this become a reality, so that we can really hold public officials and other persons in the private sector in respect of corruption more stringent, I don't understand.
We have a litany of laws that fight corruption in this country. We have an Office of Special Prosecutor in the Republic of Ghana. Right. Why then do we need any other further amendments on this, really?
Unfortunately, the OSP has got a limited jurisdiction. The office is established, but the corruption and corruption-related offenses he's supposed to prosecute or investigate and prosecute are limited. Limited.
But that's entirely what he's supposed to do.
This is coming to even expand that mandate.
Okay.
And so it is even good for the OSP.
Now, let me be quite clear on some of these things. See, the Criminal Offences Amendment Bill, for example, expands the definition of corruption to include profiting from public office. How does broadening the definition help catch more forms of corruption?
Oh, it does a lot. For now, we don't even have private sector corruption is not criminalized.
What does that mean? What does private sector corruption mean?
It means that when you are in the private sector, as a private sector entity, either as a worker, a contractor, or an official who works in the private sector, in the economy, in commerce, in administration, you should be able to be held accountable in respect of what you do in the private sector. And don't forget, the intended punishments are very punitive.
Oh, they are harsher than previous ones?
They are really, really harsher because there is no option of a fine. You have 12 years minimum imprisonment if you are convicted of that offense. And
is it only for public officers?
25 for public officers.
12 years minimum?
No, what I've just indicated is the private sector.
In the private sector?
Private sector. So we don't have that. This is a novelty. so that the private sector will know that, look, if you joke with trying to bribe people, give money to influence contracts of government officials and others, this is what will await you. That's why I am pushing for.
Even if you're a government official?
If you are not, if you are in the private sector, you are a contractor.
You're basically saying that you can go to jail for 12 to 25 years?
Yes. If minimum, without an option of a fine.
Without an option of a fine?
Good.
If you try to corrupt people as a private sector person?
Good.
The one offering the bribe?
Offering the bribe.
Is that not too drastic?
Why? Where we have reached in the fight against corruption, we really need to even be more drastic. We need to send a deterrence so that nobody has said, we are taking you to prison immediately. Don't even attempt to do it. If you want to do business with government, make sure that you do it above board. That is what is important. In fact, it's a signal to everybody.
This bill also makes it an offense for public officers to have significant, and that's what they said, significant assets or property they cannot account for. Why is addressing illicit enrichment important?
That's the biggest problem we have.
Really?
In fact, the AU Convention, the UN Convention have all got provisions that indicate that illicit enrichment is the main problem of corruption in the world. Ghana has no provision, criminal provision, in respect of illicit enrichment.
No law at all?
No law. The only law is in Article 286, Clause 4, which makes provision for, if after the initial declaration by anybody of his assets and properties, you cannot later explain how you got any property beyond the initial declaration. That, without a reasonable explanation, that property will be deemed to have been gotten illegally and should be deemed to be confiscated to the state. That's but that's not a criminal offense.
Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So this criminal offense, it's almost like saying that if I stash money anywhere and I cannot explain it, it's a criminal offense.
Yes.
Public officer.
And if you are arrested, you are investigated, and you have been asked to explain how you came by this money, which goes beyond your standard of living and your known income and emoluments, the burden shifts to you to explain satisfactorily. If you cannot explain, then it will be confiscated, and you would also be, as a public officer, you'll be removed from your job, will be terminated, and then you will be tried, and upon summary conviction, sentenced to a minimum of 12 years and a maximum of 25 years. Look, if we are going to fight corruption and make sure that Ghana remains for our children and grandchildren, we need to begin to be very intentional about implementing this type of provision.
But that's almost like a lifestyle audit of a sort.
It is a lifestyle audit. In fact, it's a stringent lifestyle audit.
But the OSP has been doing lifestyle audits.
No. He has got bits and pieces. The OSP himself knows that what is in that act is not good enough. It's only for purposes of investigations.
Okay.
He can't actually even prosecute for that.
For the lifestyle audit?
No, he can't. There's no criminal offense. It is this one,
okay,
if it is passed, that he can then use after the investigations and the findings, use that to start an...
this looks like far-reaching, a very in-depth approach to the fight against corruption.
Very, very far-reaching. That is why I have, from the beginning, indicated that I respect Godfrey Yeboah-Dame for bringing this up. But for about 3 years now, 2021, up to now, total silence on what is happening with the bill.
Do we know why?
I don't know. I want to believe that the AG has got so much on his hands. So we need to remind him. So
what you're saying is that there's a law that would actually make it very difficult for even public officers or private people to actually engage in corruption.
Specifically, the illicit enrichment is against public officers.
Okay. And yet, we have not passed this particular law. We have not passed this amendment. Is it going to change an entrenched provision or something?
No, it's not. It's not.
But it's changing an act of parliament, right?
It's not changing any act of parliament. It's only amendment of the Criminal Offences Act.
Oh, I see.
Yes. It's just adding. If you read it, it's adding
on to
more provisions on corruption. That's all.
So what then is holding us back?
Political will.
I mean, what does that even mean? That we are not willing to take it to parliament?
But I would take a bit of that back, because I think it is not necessarily political will. Because for the Attorney General to have even ventured to put this out for consultation by stakeholders, it means there is some element of commitment.
So who wrote the law?
The Attorney General.
And he went ahead to engage stakeholders on it?
He's engaged all of us in the justice sector and law enforcement.
Walk us through the procedure. So after writing and engaging people on it, how then does it become law?
After the stakeholder consultations, he's supposed to do a cabinet memorandum to cabinet, and then he is the sponsor of the bill, so he would justify in that memorandum the basis for the law, whether the law is going to have any financial considerations for government, among others, and what is the mischief it is supposed to cure. And I believe all those things are standard things that AG can do.
Has it gone through cabinet?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I'm not even aware that it has gotten to cabinet.
Oh, okay. It's not gone there yet.
To the best of my knowledge, I'm not aware.
Does it look like it will be passed before the tenure ends of this government?
If this government is committed to fighting corruption and leaving a legacy, it should be able to do that. It's not difficult. It's an amendment of the Criminal Offences Act.
Why are most of us now hearing of this? Let's be quite clear. Why?
Well, that would be difficult for me to know, because I know since 2021. And that's why I'm in your studio, to speak to it.
I mean, because it's strange.
Yeah.
This is a law that perhaps even more recent happenings would have been dealt with under it.
Perfect.
In a more comprehensive manner.
Very comprehensive.
So why is it that we have not passed this law since 2021? What exactly? Is it a bad law? Is it a law that's going to attack the integrity of some people? Is it a law that's mischievous in its very intent?
For the Attorney General to even have decided to bring up a draft for consultation, it means that government is committed. Mm-hmm. But the feet dragging is now my problem.
And this is not Parliament, because it's not got into Parliament.
No. Parliament may not even be aware of this bill.
Now, I am trying to get around it. So we need to then be able to ask the Attorney General, what's holding it back?
Yes, it would be good for the people of Ghana for you to invite the Attorney General for some answers.
Because in between that time, I mean, this is a question that you public officers, you are holding monies at home, you are hiding them in secret corners, you are so unsure that a lot have happened that's made the people question your integrity as a people. Yeah. Shouldn't we rather be sending a signal to our people that we mean business and want to fix the problems, and want to send a strong signal that corruption is being dealt with properly?
In fact, what is happening in the public space should be an opportunity for government to see to ensuring that these type of bills are passed. That would resonate with the people. That we are not only just talking, but we are doing something about the fight against corruption.
You understand corruption. See, recently, there's a very interesting piece from Madam Elizabeth Ohenry. Her question is, where should I hide my money? At the core of the question is something very important, she says. Be security conscious. She's of the opinion that hiding your money in different areas within your house, it's what people do. But the OSP appears to have problems with what's happening with the Cecilia Dapa case, which she references here. You are a lawyer. Is hiding money in any corner, in parcels, whichever form you find it, wrong in your home?
Do you mind if I don't use the Cecilia Dapa?
No, I don't care about that. I just want general.
Rather use the American senator?
Yeah.
Menendez?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
It's a similar situation. I think, in principle, there's nothing wrong with it. You can keep your money where you want, but it's about the volume. When you're a public officer, you don't have the luxury of privacy. not too much privacy.
Okay.
It's qualified. So if you are a public officer with a vote, with government budget that you can spend, and then suddenly we see wraps of money and other things in your bedroom, not just about some 20,000, 40,000 Ghana cedis, but in millions and millions, we're going to ask, we are the taxpayers, we pay you this amount. We know how much your emoluments are. Where did this money come? So legitimate questions are raised.
Okay.
And I think these are the legitimate questions the special prosecutor wants to go into in terms of the Ghanaian case.
Okay. So it's not just about whether you're hiding money at home. It's the volumes of money you are hiding and for what reason you have them.
As a public officer.
As a public officer.
There's a government policy that everybody should put his money in the bank. There is no law against keeping money in the house. But when you are a public officer who, don't forget the context of the person you are mentioning,
okay,
was a minister with a budget, a government budget, running into millions. If we suddenly see or hear that in your bedroom there are millions, when government policy encourages that all monies that we individuals have should be put in the bank, whose money should be in the bank and yours will be in your bedroom?
Okay.
And how are we sure that that is not your money? But this is a matter that is before court.
Okay.
And so I would prefer that we don't discuss it.
It only came up because of the Elizabeth Ohene kind of report, which was asking the key question about where can I keep my money anyway? Because if I can't keep it in these ones, what's the alternative available to me? Now, I want us to elevate this conversation because of this incident and others around there, a lot of people are very suspicious of government officials more recently. The thinking is that, when we all say we are suffering with inflation at a very high exchange, it is actually blowing out to the people. People have a lot of money with them. Is that very problematic?
Very problematic, particularly when government has decided to go into people's investments. DDEP.
Okay, the domestic debt.
If you can give us a haircut because we have our money in government shares. And some also have monies in their banks, and the banks have gone to buy shares, and the shares have been given a haircut. You guys, that's the context.
Oh, yeah, yes.
You should expect that nobody will be comfortable and be happy. The government will reach out and cut so much from ordinary people's investments, and then other public officers are laughing home because they have not kept their money in the bank or in shares. That is a problem. And it's because it was government policy that everybody should put his money in the bank. Or if you cannot put it in the bank, invest it in shares. So where is safe now? So if I have done what government policy requires, and a public official decides to keep that money, his or her money, in her bedroom, that money will not get a haircut. Is that fair?
That's an interesting question. Is it fair?
No, it's not certainly fair.
Well, we can't do anything about it, can we?
We can do something about it. That's why the special prosecutor is hell-bent on finding answers for you and I.
That's interesting. And, some time ago, you asked for support for the special prosecutor.
Yes.
Do you still maintain that position?
Oh, yes. He's my good friend, and it's a new institution. We are a bit older, and so we know how to survive in this day and age. But he's new. And I can see there is some bit of effort in terms of the recruitment that he had been wanting. I've seen some recruitments have taken place, which is fine. But I don't know about actual money for work. That is something we still want to plead with government to do more for the OSP. And of course, for we ourselves too.
Now, you have not only been talking about fighting corruption, you've actually been talking about how the police is conducting itself when it comes to protesters. You've issued a strongly worded statement. Yes, strongly worded is the word that everybody's using. But why are you poking your nose into the affairs of the police, a security institution?
Yeah, but the word strongly worded Completely wrong.
Oh, really?
The word is advisory. An advisory is an advice. If you look at the first word on that letter to my good friend, the IGP, is an advisory. It's because, you see, the right or the freedom to assemble, to demonstrate, and to protest is a very fundamental right that has been, in fact, underscored by even the Supreme Court in a number of cases. Because the people can only take part in governance if they are able to collectively go on the street and indicate what they have about a government policy or government policies. There should be nothing wrong with that. So the best we can do is to protect them as they are making their case. But for that to now become, we have not had consensus about where your route is. Is Ghana police not able to police people along the routes any route that they take to ensure that they are kept in line?
But they talk about security zones too. Are there not security zones? Office of the President, some places like Parliament, other places, are there not security zones?
Well, I mean, you see, me, I like democracy. But I'm very careful when people vote us into power and we begin to look at places where the president and others, who the people elected to become security zone against the people. What does that mean? How can that ordinary people who are walking around with a gun, how can that suddenly become a security zone? What the police can do is to cordon them off, give them a distance from wherever those security zones are, and let the people speak their mind. They are speaking to their government. They want to communicate. If you prevent them from communicating and tell them, go and sit at Independence Square, is the president near Independence Square? The demonstrators want to get closer to where the problem is, where they can be heard. That's the point.
You are a lawyer. This issue with the police springing up on let's say, a couple of days or the day before your protest with purported injunction applications seeking to stop your protest, is it right?
Whose protest?
As in seeking to stop a protest of any sort.
I just want to be clear.
Yes, of course. I've not seen you on a protest before. Yes.
It's problematic for me. Problematic because, one, the way it is done. Or the eve of the event, we sadly bring processes, serve on them, indicating that there is an injunction application. You need to come to court on a date that is put way beyond the date for the march. What any reasonable person can read between the lines.
Okay.
Are you trying to take away the right that the person or that group are exercising and using the court as a front? Should that be? In any case, even if there is an injunction that has been filed, legitimately and served on them, are you the one to go and execute that injunction? If they don't come to court, contempt will lie against them.
I see.
Don't go and police your own action. You want an injunction, and then you suddenly go and you are trying to implement the injunction when it has not yet been granted. Is that right?
You're calling for an independent investigation into allegations of police misconduct during the protest.
Really, I haven't called. I've only advised the police to be a bit more careful with citizens who are exercising their right to legitimately protest and demonstrate and send whatever information they want to their employees.
This is interesting because some will say, why are you impeding the space of the police? Why are you basically almost like making it impossible for the police to carry out their duties? In the collective interest of the state.
I'm happy about that question because people may not understand why we come in.
Yeah. Because they say, but CHRAJ, what business have you to be advising the police in the performance of its duties? When did you start becoming an advisory body everywhere else? Are you an interloper?
CHRAJ is the constitutional body invested with the mandate or the duty to protect and promote all the rights in Chapter 5, which includes the right in Article 21D to demonstrate or to protest. All right? Now, again, under the Paris Principles, all national human rights institutions have, the UN has given them some additional jurisdiction. That is to advise governments, central and local government officials, on human rights and how human rights can be implemented in order not to nullify the enjoyment of that right. And in this particular instance, we saw an opportunity to give that advice.
Okay.
And we have been giving those advices over the years. I've given advisory opinions to the executive in the past. I'm talking of the president's office, to national security. I've given to the IGP himself during the COVID time when there were arrests of people. We've done that all over. But this particular one seems more interesting to most people. I don't know why.
Is it not interesting?
Well,
because because of what happened, and it appears that you are joining a certain public uproar to decide to go against the police.
No. The police themselves know that we're simply asserting the institutional mandate of the Commission to comment on a national issue which is of prime importance. If we don't do it now and it is gone, what happens?
But in effect, you can't do anything about it if the police dismisses your advice.
No, it's an advice.
You cannot do anything beyond that.
Oh, the next thing is that we'll meet at the UN or the AU. We'll, in our shadow reports, when we are sending, we'll indicate how unfriendly our police are when it comes to policing demonstrations and protests.
That's bad press for Ghana.
No. It's our duty. Again, it's one of the Paris Principles requirement. Government will send their report, the Universal Periodic Review, to the UN. The National Human Rights Commission is supposed to send a shadow report on anything that it thinks government has done or not done.
Okay.
So that the Human Rights Council, the peer review mechanism, will look at the two. If you're hiding anything, it will come up.
That's interesting. Yeah. So you can drag the police there.
Oh yeah,
you can actually report them.
We have been doing that.
Really?
Yes. This year we were at the Universal Periodic Review with our report. And government was led by the Attorney General Godfrey Yeboah-Dame and the Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joe Wise. Yeah, we're there together. And we didn't sit together. We sat separately and we spoke differently.
You had different views on matters?
No, because we are not a state. They are there for the state. We are there separately as the Human Rights Commission, which is supposed to hold government and the state accountable. We're simply performing our accountability function.
People have realized and raised this matter. The lack of investigations and disciplinary action against implicated officers has been a concern. For example, the people who were arrested and took them to jail on that night, nothing has happened to them. What can we do about situations like that?
Do you want them to be prosecuted? Or?
I mean, I'm asking, what is the procedure for dealing with people like that? Since you say the conduct was inappropriate, what do we do with people who conduct themselves in inappropriate ways?
Their matter lies in any possible civil action.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, they can for lawful arrest.
As in the gentlemen and the people, the protesters who are arrested?
Yes.
They are the ones who can take them on?
They can take them on. They can take the police on. What is the basis for arresting them? That they did not show respect to a court process? Are you the one to do that? Should it be that? So I leave that to, like I said, mine is an advisory. The lawyers of the demonstrators know the law. They know what to do if they are interested or they are minded.
Now, let me also bring it, because this is a matter that police is not, in the Republic of Ghana, the conduct of the police system has always been with powerful people, is almost like a force. Can we ever get them changing?
We can get them changed if we have the right leadership. The leadership appreciates that. Look, policing has changed. We're dealing with policing within a democratic order. It's not like the colonial days. Democratic policing, some of the leadership of the police, I know they know. But it is the lower level who do not know. And there's a need, if you see my recommendations in the advisory, I said we should train them, give them guidelines as to how they can take care of protests.
But we always say that.
Others.
We always say that.
Yeah, but
I can track back to the National Reconciliation Commission's report, the recent Ayawasu Wogon report. Yeah. It's almost like the police is the only institution that requires reform, but they always don't deliver on the job.
I know the IGP is somebody who would be interested in clarifying this. Yeah, you should be able to call them and let them explain why. There's nothing wrong with it. They are our people. We have put them there. You see, accountability should be something that the ordinary, the media and others should be able to hold people. You are doing it. You call them out. So let them explain why, in the light of Ayawaso, West Wugon, those issues, among others, all these things have come up. And yet, the policing is still brutal. It's still treating people as if they have no rights. Meanwhile, look, the police, do you know the Ghana Police Service is a constitutional body?
Yeah.
You know that. Yeah. So if it's a constitutional body, they must obey the Constitution. Why should the ordinary NCO behave as if they are above the law? The fact that you're implementing the law doesn't mean that you're above the law. That's the point.
Now, maybe beyond this particular point, though, you've also been busy. And, you recently, it's reported to have criticized the Electoral Commission. What have they done to you?
Oh, no, I haven't really. If it came out that way, then that's something.
You say they are seeming untouchable.
Yes. You see, when, let's put things in context. I'm also an independent constitutional body.
Yeah.
But you can see the angle from which I speak. We should not overstate the independence that has been given to us under the Constitution, because it is coming from the people. When it's about things that relate to the people, we should not stress that independence too much. And registration, in this context, making the registration more too onerous for the ordinary person who gave us the power. That was the basis for which I was hard on them.
So, fundamentally, registering to be a voter and participating in an election is a fundamental human right.
It's a human right, and registration has to be enabled by the Electoral Commission. Because without registration, you can't even exercise the right to vote. So if you then disable that right, that right to register, because you make it difficult for people to access the place. Now they have to travel several days with guarantors. The next day, if they don't get to register, they have to come back 2-3 times. Why? Why should we let the ordinary person who set up these institutions to work in their interest now becoming like an obstruction to their enjoyment of life?
That's an interesting point. I've not thought of it that way. Do you think, you are also an independent body, so perhaps that question goes to you people. Do you people feel that you are beyond reproach?
I don't feel so. I feel humbled.
Do you feel that?
I feel serving the people is actually a high order of a call. So I don't feel that way at all.
Why do you think, for example, the Electoral Commission would act in such a manner?
Oh, you may have to ask them.
I get you.
You may have to ask them. I don't know. Really, for the life of me, I don't know.
What can they do now? Because they're already in the throes of the registration exercise. They did a press conference today complaining about minors and others getting on the electoral roll.
Yeah.
But those concerns about the registration center being far from the people, and also because you didn't do it last year and the previous year, so it looks like there's a huge number of people who are still struggling to get on board.
Yeah, but
what can the AC do now?
Yeah, don't forget, they have tried to let us know. From different speakers on the EC front, we've come to understand when the director elections came on your news file, he indicated that the sanctity of the register is what they are more concerned. Now, if they overspread it in the context of guarantor system, which, the EC doesn't really like the guarantor system.
Yeah, they almost wanted to take it out.
Yeah, so that is why they're trying to close the gaps as much as possible. In fact, I'm sure that if the EC is minded, until people buzz the people there, they would have preferred that let's just close up. And maybe next year, we'll again open. By which time, more Ghana cards would have been
available
issued.
To the people.
Then they would depend on the Ghana cards. I think that is.
Is that a legitimate reason why the people cannot be, registration cannot be taken closer to the people now?
But registrations have taken place from 92 to now.
That's true.
Without Ghana card. That's a point. Our democracy has not suffered. So, you see, for me...
But there's a stress on sanctity of the register now.
Yeah, well, I don't know. They claim that, there have always been situations of, the register is bloated. Mm-hmm. It's bloated. But they seem to think that this one is now the best one.
Yeah, so we shouldn't add more.
So they don't want to add
minors
more
and
junk.
Foreigners, which is also what they talk about.
More junk. I think from that angle, we all agree that we want a register that is really that is top notch. But I always say the people must come first. Consider the ordinary poor woman and, her daughter or son of 18 years in a far-flung village, which is about 50 kilometers from the EC district office. And they have to truck in at their cost, truck back, maybe do that 3 times at their own expense, all because they want to exercise their right to vote. We may make the practice of voting in a democratic dispensation become too onerous and people will just give up and not do it.
Is that why you indicated that democracy is at risk when citizens are getting disillusioned with public institutions meant to serve them?
Yes. We need to have that always at the back of our minds. All of us, from the presidency through to the last person who is working as a public officer. We should know that we are serving at the pleasure of the ordinary man. They gave the power. And so we shouldn't come to power and just assume that, now we are in power. You don't matter. That is the way it seems to look like. We need to be careful. Because when democracy fails, chaos is what is next. We need to be very careful.
You said power-drunk officials are failing Ghanaians. Oh, really?
I'm sure some overzealous media person...
Oh, really? I'm quoting one of the reports that you don't... Okay, so if you didn't say that power-drunk officials are failing Ghanaians, but, I'm scared in this area because a lot of exasperation was around this exercise of registration.
Yeah, and it's still going on.
Yeah. Are you disappointed?
Yeah, I wish it were done better. I wish my sister institution really appreciated that. Yes, you are doing your best to maintain the sanctity of the register, but don't inconvenience the ordinary. I'm talking of the poor. And all of us, the 70 million Ghanaians who have to vote, can only do so through registration. And those who are left, we have to do this to let them come to participate in our democracy at their cost. It's not fair.
They say they may change it and that this year their budget is set. They plan on doing this at districts. Next year they may change it. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. Actually, that's the other point they have said, which is very good. Mm-hmm. They will do the continuous registration, which is what we all aim at. That is something we look for. But don't forget, this year we are going to have district-level elections.
That's true.
So those who are not able to register, it's not about 2024. It's about the local government level too.
Oh, I see. So if I'm unable to register this year...
If you can't register this year, you can't vote for anybody in the local...
At the district level?
No.
Where mostly turnout is very low.
It's already low. And then this is the governance that is near the people. And they are not able to choose who
quite like it defeats the purpose of the entire local government structure.
Exactly.
Now, let me bring you into this one, because, I mean, it almost sounds like some people would already be disenfranchised from that local government elections.
It would appear like that. It would appear like that. If by the close of this registration period, the estimated number, I think they are estimating about 1.3.
Yes, million. Yeah.
If the 1.3 million are not in, it means that other number that is not registered certainly would not participate in local government elections this year.
Do they have any recourse to law or to your office?
Well, unless, I don't know.
Can they petition you that their human rights is being abused?
That's another independent constitutional body.
Oh, really?
Exercising their mandate. So
okay.
I don't, that's why
I'm asking, can they petition you that their human rights is being infringed upon?
If they do that, it is their right to vote,
okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. And the right to vote must come through right to register.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. I cannot help them much because that mandate to register is a mandate of the Electoral Commission.
Okay.
And they have explained to us the basis for which they are not able to. I don't want to go into the issues of how Parliament has not passed their
yeah, they mentioned it. Actually,
bill,
they complain that Parliament is to be also held responsible for this.
Yes, and if they had done that, the budget would have been different, and so they would have gone all out. So those are areas I don't really want to discuss.
The final point on this particular one, it's not really about whether they can come to you for recourse or you can get them registered.
Yes.
But it's actually really about, if you could speak to the EC today, would you ask them to consider an extension?
I'll do it through an advisory.
Oh, really?
Another advisory.
You issue it to them?
Yes, and put it on record. This is what we want. This is what we can do for our people.
Now, I want to move beyond this, but there's a question, though. When you were appearing to make comments on the EC, some accuse you of overstepping your role of criticizing the EC.
Oh, really?
They believe that. I mean, it is not your business at all. That you focus on your job.
I'm not criticizing the EC because it is the EC. Mm-hmm. It is my job to ensure that all human rights are manifestly, implemented.
Do they know that?
And this is the right to vote. So my beef was in respect of the right to register in order to vote, not the EC. It could be anybody else who would have been given that mandate. I would have been going for that person. But it is the EC's job to do so. But you are registering people to exercise a right to vote, which right is also in my kitty.
Okay, to protect.
Good. So you see where...
Oh, so they are overlapping in this case.
So that is where there is an issue with us.
So it's not like you're just overstepping and seeking to overreach to the Electoral Commission, teaching them their job.
No, I can't. I can't teach them their job. I don't know any election management or anything. But at least I know how to protect the right of people.
I see. Now, there's a related matter. Apparently, when you were taking on the EC, you were equally reaching out to the Electoral to the Supreme Court too. Were they part of the people you were assuming that they seemed untouchable?
You see, maybe sometimes the reportage can...
Yes, because that's what,
I actually indicated that they were emboldened over the years by some interpretations by the Supreme Court. I have not criticized...
Oh, you're talking about... Okay, so you said the EC was emboldened
by the interpretations by cases that have come before the Supreme Court. And as a result, they are going on the tangent they are going. That's it.
It's not as if you are blaming the Supreme Court or saying that.
It's their right, their power, their mandate to interpret the Constitution. But if you interpret it in such a way that the EC is almost like an untouchable person, I cannot say you have not created a problem, a monster.
I see. Now, one of the points, though, is if we want to restore trust in the Electoral Commission first, what do we do?
Well, for me, I wish we don't dwell too much on this matter.
Yeah.
Actually, for me, it's about the EC appreciating that they're doing these things for you can see that all my arguments is about how we can make the right to vote more realistic for the ordinary folks. Anything that will make it comfortable for them, so that they don't spend too much of their own money trying to ensure that Ghana's democracy works, is my concern. If the EC can go as far as to their polling stations, registering them, I don't have a problem. That one, in this period of registration, that would have, but it's a bit late now.
That's at least that's what they say, that maybe you are considering doing that going into the future. Yes. So now the other point, though, if I could raise it with you, is generally, how are we doing the fight against corruption? Because I'll ask you about how we are doing the fight with the promotion of human rights too. Generally, how are we doing the fight against corruption? Are we getting better? And I'm coming from the premise of, maybe if I said it, the CPI has not been getting better. In the last 3 years, we've been scoring the same score. And this same score used to be the worst under the previous government. So it doesn't look like on the face of it, but the CPI is just corruption perception index.
It's an index.
You have a proper appreciation of the space of corruption fight. How are we doing generally?
We aren't doing very well.
You're not doing very well?
We're not doing as much as we should. You see, it's not about investigating and prosecuting corruption. That is not the issue. It is how does government ensure that appointees of state are accountable even without requiring an investigation.
How so? What do you mean?
One, prevention.
Oh, okay.
If we had the Conduct of Public Officers Bill, which we have been pretending that it is there, but you know it is not really functional. If we have...
So what do you mean by it's not really functional?
No, I mean, the Conduct of Public Officers Bill is before Cabinet.
Okay.
We have done our best to ensure that Chapter 24, which is supposed to meet the AU Convention and the UN Convention provisions, is reflected properly. Now, the latest version, I don't know whether you have it, the 2022 version.
Yes, I have that.
Really attempts to some extent to meet some of the provisions. The provisions about public access to declarations or publication, sanctions, and verification. Even though I have issues with the 3 areas, but there has been an attempt to see how they can improve upon that area. But we can do more. I go for let the people know, their public officers, what assets they have, what properties they have, publicly. It should be published in the Gazette. It should be areas that are easily accessible to the people. Because there is nothing in the Constitution that talks about confidentiality. It's in the disqualification, the public officers holders qualification and disqualification and access act. I've gotten the number. But Act 550. That is the one that introduces confidentiality.
Okay. Oh, really?
Yes. So what is wrong with it? Why can't we? Why are we? If you want to be a public officer, then make your assets and properties known so that we can know, we can have a baseline. When you came into a job, we saw how much you came with.
But the PNDC law allowed that, right?
So why are we going backwards?
And even had sanction regimes that included prison.
Yes, I happen to have. You may not have. I have declared under the PNDC.
Okay.
I've done it before.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And they published them.
Published? And you could just buy a gazette and you see the names of... I saw late P.V. Obeng. Mm-hmm. He declared a gramophone, among others.
Gramophone.
A gramophone.
I see.
That is the extent to which there was transparency.
Yeah.
So, why now? Why has it already become, now it seems like, it would be dangerous if we, but so many countries around the world are publishing. What's so special about Ghana?
The Auditor General, former Daniel Domelevo, took you on in my last interview with him, insisting that you as CHRAJ boss could actually invalidate somebody's office if the person failed to actually file the asset declaration. Because to him, you cannot, it's a prerequisite for office. If you don't qualify or comply with that, you can take office. Are you emboldened with such powers?
Daniel Domelevo, my very good friend. Yes. I'm happy about it. I heard him say what he said.
Okay.
But he was being unfair to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very, very unfair. One, because, look, the provision in Article 287, that says that the commissioner, after the investigations, or the Chief Justice, depending on the case, may take appropriate action arising out of the results of the investigation. It's too opaque.
Okay.
It's too opaque and is subject to any criticism. If you decide to say because of that you're going to remove somebody from his job, how are you going to explain? Are you the appointing authority?
That's interesting.
So you could see that when it came to the case of the PPA boss, I recommended to the president, who is the appointing authority, to remove him from office. Are you seeing?
I get you, yeah.
But now in the new bill, that is now before cabinet, or from the ages, there is provision for a whole gamut of sanctions, from reprimands through reductions to demotions to removals. It's all there.
Because you didn't file, or
because you have not filed,
okay,
or you gave a false declaration, or you did not file and you were paid emoluments for a number of years and months. All that is captured. Now there are sanctions for that.
There's a new bill.
There's a new bill and there are sanctions. But I'm not comfortable with the fines. There are some fines and then imprisonment. So there are now fines and imprisonment.
Like going back to the PNDC days?
Yes, but the fines are on the low side. I want the fines to be raised.
Okay,
yes.
I see.
1,000 to 1,500 penalty units. It's too small.
Is President Akufo-Addo fighting corruption? This is a direct question. I know you are not a Timber also.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, when it's about the institutions, the anti-corruption institutions, he's giving us money. He's doing it consistently. And I think that is also the way of fighting corruption. But he can do more. He can even fight corruption within his own ministries.
Really?
Depending on the signal you give to people.
Like what?
Yeah, you can fire. You can fire. You don't need an investigation before you exercise your power of removal. You can do that and hand them over to us to investigate them for further punishment. You can do that.
Is trust winning in the judiciary?
An area I normally would not want to comment on.
You are not a Timber also.
No, I'm not. But I want to reserve that card. I know normally, you see, we need to build our judiciary.
We need to.
No matter what it is, we need to make sure that we do these things in a manner that we don't overexpose them.
Does it require balance?
I wouldn't want to comment on that.
You don't think so, or you think so?
I don't want to comment on that. But it is a political game and I don't want to be part of the politics.
Mr. Whittal, until the next appointed date that you shall make time for us, I am very grateful to you for your time this evening.
Thank you, my brother.
And surely we will chase up on those laws to see where it's gone up to and perhaps get to the bottom of it. But I'm very grateful for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's where we end today's edition of Upfront. Many thanks to you for watching us.